One of the biggest surprises of the fall 2021 anime season is easily Mieruko-chan. This is a series that I really didn't have high expectations for. I knew it was supposed to be somewhat horror, but at the same time a comedy, but what I ended up finding when I watched the series was that it perfectly balances three key features: horror, drama, and comedy, with a little bit of sprinkle of ecchi in there. But this is my review of Mieruko-chan, a 12-episode series that aired in the fall 2021 anime season. It was done by director Yuki Ogawa, who did Fully Coolly Progressive, Interspecies Reviewers, and Mirotites, and the series composition by Kenta Ihara, who's known for Cautious Hero, Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy, as well as Saga of Tanya the Evil. So with that said, let's jump into it. Mieruko-chan follows a girl named Miko, who's kind of your standard schoolgirl, and one day after returning to school in order to get something that she accidentally dropped, she ends up finding herself at a bus stop where suddenly her phone starts going crazy and sending a text back to her from her friend showing her own face until it slowly deforms. And then to her surprise, standing next to her at this bus stop is a ghost. A large, grotesque-looking ghost. And while she herself knows that she can see this monstrosity, she decides to ignore it, because she feels that if she acknowledges it, it will harm her. And this continues as she goes about her days, always running into different ghosts that are surrounding her, and all the while trying not to acknowledge any of them in fear of them attacking her. And most of the time she's joined with her friend named Hana. And Hana has an interesting thing about her as well. While Hana can't see these ghosts like Miko can, she has an interesting aura about herself, a very bright aura that seems to attract the ghosts to her. And additionally, over time, you end up meeting a girl named Yuria, who is also able to see these ghosts, though she can only see the small ones, and even though she wants Miko to acknowledge that she can see them, she always kind of keeps it a secret from her. And Mieruko-chan, for the most part, seemed to kind of consist of 2 to 3 different skits throughout each episode, where Miko ends up running into some sort of situation where she sees a new ghost, she has her fear of the specific ghost, and ultimately she has to figure out some way to ignore it while trying to get past it. And while in most cases it seems like that's the punchline, there's a lot of cases where it seems to twist it a little bit. And this is where we get into my biggest enjoyment of Mieruko-chan. As at the very first face value, it seems like it's just really kind of focused around Miko reacting to something that's terrifying her, and then her ultimately trying to keep herself in check as she avoids it. Most of these ghosts either have a story or a punchline to them, where either how she avoids it is the joke, or there's a story to be told because of the ghost. And that's where I said my enjoyment is with the series, is that it always managed to balance different elements. Whether one skit has this point at the end of it where you start laughing, or you have this other skit where at the end of it you're kind of emotional. You realize that something really cool came from this experience and you're kind of overjoyed by that, or you're sorrowful by that, because there's a lot of stories here that are actually really sad. Obviously you're dealing with ghosts, and in a lot of cases ghosts have family, and family have emotions. Now I think a lot of that enjoyment really does come around the writer's ability to subvert expectations. You expect that the ultimate goal of this situation is to either terrify Miko or to make you laugh with a punchline, but in some cases you realize, oh wait, there was something really important there, and the writer just tricked me into thinking that it was not important. But even when it's as simple as a joke or punchline, I think this show excels around the fact that Miko herself and the seiyuu behind her does an incredible job, with addition to the studio. I think the studio, the seiyuu, and the character itself is able to really pull off some great scenes. The animation's really top-notch, the character designs are fantastic, and so when you have these moments where Miko is really kind of struggling with a situation, you get that terror in her. And it's kind of a sad thing when I'm both laughing but feeling bad for Miko, because the character and the seiyuu themselves are pulling off so well this terror and this desire to kind of avoid a situation. And it's really hard to describe, but like I said, every time there was something in front of Miko that's terrifying her, and she's trying to figure out a way of avoiding it and ignoring it, it's funny at the same time that I'm feeling really bad for Miko. And additionally, like I said, Passion's way to pulling off that expression is perfect. Plus, adding to that, they did a really interesting job on the ghosts themselves, making them both horrifying, but at the same time, kind of uniquely animated in a way. But I think the more weird thing about the show itself is obviously the ecchi. I think early on when the show first started, there was a couple people that were kind of mentioning in my comment sections of my videos about the fact that they're kind of shying away from the show because it has ecchi. And it was honestly odd because early on the show had a lot of it. It was kind of a mixture of ecchi, comedy, and the horror and the drama. But it seemed like over time, after about halfway through the show, it seemed like they stopped. It was kind of weird. It was one of those elements of like, why did we start off so heavy with the ecchi where it seemed like a lot of visual perspectives were based on like showing butt shots and stuff, and then suddenly out of nowhere it seemed like they had this whole scene with Miko in the shower, and then it never really had any more ecchi beyond that, besides maybe one scene at the very end of Hana dressing. So I will say the show is not for ecchi. If you're looking for ecchi, this is not, it's there, but it's not really like a focus. And like I said, with the fact that it kind of ignores it later on, it really does make you wonder why they even bother doing that to begin with. Not that it was bad ecchi. But yeah, overall, I really love this series. Like I said, just a perfect mixture of horror, comedy, reactionary comedy, these really heartfelt scenes that really catch you off guard, mainly because of the writer's really incredible ability to subvert your expectations or just twist the perspective from you till you realize the true perspective of the story it's telling. I highly recommend Mieruko-chan. I recommend everybody check it out. It's an absolutely fantastic show that I was really surprised by. I loved every single week of this series, and I really do hope we get a second season, despite the fact that it seems like there's not enough content for it quite yet. My hat's off to the studio for pulling off such a perfect adaptation of this series. It looked great, it felt great, it was just a great series overall. Definitely highly suggest it. But that's my review of Mieruko-chan. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know if you're going to check out the series or if you checked it out and what your thoughts is on it. Subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon through the tips link in the description below. I definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.